Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ebb and Glow podcast. Today on the mic, it's just me for a solo episode all about how I set boundaries in my real everyday life. We're going to talk about how I set boundaries in my professional career, how I set boundaries with relationships and friendships, and just another bunch of examples on how I've set boundaries around money and budgets and just like my personal self-care. So lots to get to, but before we jump into it, if you haven't already, please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, scroll down and you can hit that 5-star review and leave a few comments on what you think about the podcast. If you're gaining value from this show or any of these episodes, the easiest way to give your support is by sharing this episode with a friend who would also gain value from it. I love when this podcast gets shared around to people, and I'm starting to notice a lot of new listeners coming in that I have no idea who they are, and I love that. So if you're new here, welcome. On this podcast, we discuss everything from confidence, careers, mental health, traumas or setbacks or pivots you've had in your life, how your careers change, friendship breakups. We talk about everything. And along with all of those topics, I felt that talking about boundaries ties all of that together. One thing that I feel that I'm really good at is setting boundaries. Now, I never was like that. I would never call myself a people pleaser, but there's been times where I've definitely felt taken advantage of, and I felt that I've given more than I've gained, and I end up feeling really resentful. So I really want to talk about how I've set boundaries in my life, and hopefully they will resonate with you and you can start setting some boundaries in your own life. So the first thing I want to discuss is, first of all, what is a boundary? So boundaries are all of those rules of a relationship that guide the way two people interact, whether that is through your career, whether that's through your relationships, your friendships, or just in your everyday life when you're interacting with people. Basically, these boundaries includes the expectations, what's okay and what's not okay. Boundaries is a pretty buzzy word right now, I will say. And I think that goes hand in hand with how mental health is a very huge topic right now. Not that mental health was never happening, but people are talking about it. The stigma is going away from it. And with mental health comes the conversation around boundaries. What are they? How do we set them? Why should we set them? Why do we have so much trouble setting them? How do you know when to set them? These are all things I'm going to talk about. I want you to kind of think about your everyday life. Where in your life have you set boundaries, and where in your life have you felt that you probably should have set a boundary? And the thing to really think about here is, have you ever been asked to do something or watch something or say something or drive somewhere, eat something, and kind of felt nervous to say no, but you still had that like gut feeling that you were like, I don't really want to do this, but you kind of felt obligated to. And it doesn't have to be like something super traumatic, or we're not really getting down to that road. We're thinking about like everyday things. If someone asked you to come to an event and you're like, I don't really want to, but you kind of felt that social obligation to say yes. We've all been there. I do this. This happens to me like every few days. But you need to ask yourself, why did you really want to say no? And then why did you ultimately say yes? Why did you feel obligated to say yes? So think to yourself, all the times you've given someone something, whether that be your time, money, or energy, and that you were kind of left feeling taken advantage of or resentful. If you've ever been in that situation, these are all signs that a boundary needs to be set. And a boundary does not have to be as scary as it sounds. You do not have to call them up and fight around, this is my boundary. No, it can be a lot smoother of a conversation than it may seem. You likely know deep down, aka your gut feeling, your intuition, that there was a boundary that needed to be set. But a lot of us, we're scared to set those changes in a relationship dynamic. And in fact, most of us will probably stay in that pain instead of having the hard conversations or acknowledging the realities of what needs to change. Anyone who's listening to this right now can probably come up with a prime example currently that they think, yeah, I need to kind of set a boundary there, but I don't really want to have that tough conversation. But trust me, I know how you feel. I'm there. I've been there, but it's worth having those conversations. When you have a hard time saying no to someone, or even when you say no, you feel guilty, you need to remind yourself that you have a right to be treated with respect. You have a right to make your needs as important as others. You have a right to be accepting of your mistakes and your failures and the changes of plans. And most importantly, you have a right to not meet others' unreasonable expectations of yourself. I've been in situations where I've had friends that kind of want a little bit more and boyfriends that kind of need more from me than I'm willing to give. And you need to have those conversations about their unreasonable expectations. The main benefits to setting boundaries are simply more time and energy. You need to put yourself first, because it's no secret that the better you take care of yourself, the better you can serve everyone else. So if you're the type of person that gets a lot of joy out of helping people and giving advice and being there for your friends and family, you can't be the best version of yourself in that situation if you don't put yourself first. Saying no to someone and setting that boundary gives you a lot more energy and time back. And then in turn, that's going to help you be a better employee, better partner, better friend, and just a better person overall for everyone in your relationships. So let's get to the juicy parts. How do I set boundaries? And where have I felt guilty saying no? And where have I in my life felt taken advantage of? Because Lord knows there's tons of times. But over the years, I've learned how to set better boundaries. And realistically, a lot of people in my life probably don't even realize I'm setting a boundary, but you're almost building this protective wall around you. You're almost like building your own little bubble to protect your energy, to protect your aura, to protect everything about you so that you don't react to things, so that you don't become the person that you don't really want to be. And I know for me, I can react, I can get mad really quickly. So I always put these little spacers in between myself and people in business and my friends and family so that I can be who I want to be, and I can be a version of myself that makes me proud, makes me happy, instead of being the person who is reactive and mean, and you know what I mean? So I want to give you some examples because I find I can explain things a lot better when I give an exact example. My biggest struggle of setting boundaries lately has been in my career. So the nature of working in real estate, you're kind of on 24/7. And it's so funny. You leave a 9 to 5 because you don't like working for someone else, but then you end up working 24/7. And that's not a flex by any means. That it can be pretty exhausting. And especially when you're working in a type of career where people are depending on you for answers, for responses, for expertise, you kind of feel guilty when you're not responding quick enough, when you're taking time for yourself. But I mean, ultimately, for me to be the best real estate agent that I can be, to be on top of my game, I need to be saying no. I need to be setting those boundaries with my clients and with my coworkers in order to be able to get through the week, the day, the month, the year, you know? So one of my biggest ways I set boundaries in my job is two ways. So one, I always have my phone on Do Not Disturb. And that's so bad for real estate. But the nature of being in the real estate business is there's notifications and texts and emails going off all day long. And if I'm trying to sit and do an appraisal on a property for a client that's looking to buy, and I'm helping them decide kind of what price to go in on, I need to focus. I need to look at the comps. I need to make some educated assumptions. I need to do all the math that goes into doing an appraisal for a property. But if I have my phone blowing up and a bunch of text messages come in and a group chat going off and a client calling and another agent calling, then I have a coworker asking for help, when the hell am I going to get anything done? You're not. So the biggest thing that I do is I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. When I have some missed calls, I actually have on my voicemail like, hey, sorry I missed your call. I will get back to you as soon as I can, and feel free to text me and I will get back to you. That's fine. I don't think it's fair for someone to expect for you to answer your phone immediately. Everyone's busy. Everyone's doing something. I think it would be weird if someone's just sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring. Like, that's not a real estate agent I even want to work with, you know? So I know, like, maybe for some of my clients it's kind of annoyed them that I'm not instantly available. But I don't know, if I was in their shoes, I think I'd have a lot of respect for someone who's like has a lot on their plate and is busy with a lot of clients, because that means they're experienced. They know what they're talking about. They're working in this business day in and day out. So they can serve me well because they know what's going on with the market. So another way, kind of that part 2 of that is, especially in business, is I treat text like emails. And I know this is going to sound weird, but let me say it in a way that kind of helps the general population. Imagine treating your Slack messages like emails. You are not expected to respond at all the times. The same way, like don't think this is specific to working in the real estate industry or working for yourself. This goes hand in hand if you're in a traditional employee relationship as well. You do not have to answer things immediately. I know when I answer things immediately, I am responding in frustration. I am responding in annoyance. I would rather sit back and digest what they asked or digest what they say and respond 15, 20 minutes later with a very thought out response. If you are in a business where people text you a lot, what I do in my business, I have an iPhone. So what I do is you can hold the message so that you can basically read it, but it doesn't go as read. So basically, if I accidentally open a message and it's doesn't have that blue dot anymore, I'll probably forget to answer it. So if I accidentally do that, I actually do this other thing on the iPhone where if you hold the message again, you can go pin, and then on top, you can basically have 9 pinned messages on top. If I know I need to respond to someone within the hour, but I don't have time right now, or I'm just dealing with something else, I'll hold their message and I'll push them up to the pin so that I know when I pick up my phone again, the message is on the top, I really need to deal with them soon. Half open the message, kind of read it just so I can know that there's no fires that need to be put out or anything. If it's not super pressing, I'll answer it again in 15 minutes, in 30 minutes, in an hour. If it's not crazy pressing, you answering within an hour is not going to matter. Another thing, if you do have the type of job that people kind of want you available and answering, but you really don't have the time, another thing you can do, you can respond quickly and say, hey, got your message. I'm doing X, Y, and Z right now, so I won't be able to look at it at this moment, but I can get back to you later this evening. Does that work for you? So using that dialogue, because at the end of the day, people just want to feel that you've received their message and that you are thinking about it, that you're actioning it. So if you know you're not going to get to someone for 8-10 hours, just send them that kind of response hey, got your message. I'll be working on this later this evening. And everyone's fine. Everyone just wants to be communicated with and know what's going on. Another thing I do within my professional job as a way to set a boundary is, even though I work in real estate, I have office hours. So I don't answer a single thing before 9 a.m. and I close it all down by 8 p.m. the latest. And these are long days still, but the nature of being in real estate, it's all day. A lot of people work 9 to 5, so they want to see things and talk about things in the evening. So kind of it's open between those hours. Not necessarily that I'm working all those hours. A lot of the times I am, but not all the time. Now, I know a lot of other real estate agents and even my own coworkers are answering things at all hours of the day. But for me, like I said, I treat them like emails. And for me, that gives me time to myself in the mornings and myself in the evening so that I don't feel like I'm on at all times. And that inevitably leads to me preventing burnout. And no one's good at their job or in life when they're dealing with burnout. So one way that you can do this in your traditional career, or if you work with a team, you can communicate your priorities and values very quickly with your team. It can be as simple as you letting your team know that I don't answer emails after 7 p.m. So if they're sending emails to you at 7:30, they're not expecting a response. And that's what it all comes down to. It's the expectation. So if they know you don't answer it outside of 7, they're not expecting a response. And that's all that matters. So sometimes if I have some clients that text me at 6 a.m. and also text me at 11 p.m. during the next day, I'll just say, hey, as a heads up, I usually turn things off around 8 p.m. So if I don't get back to you, I will the next day. Now, let me caveat that with, if I'm with clients and we're putting together offers, we're in a tight time crunch, of course, I'm going to be working outside my normal hours. I'm not going to say no to getting a deal done. But for anything that's not time sensitive, it can wait till the next day. Another quick way that I myself and anyone listening to this needs to set a boundary is take time off. You need to take time off when you get it, when you need it, and when it's offered. And I cannot stress this enough. There is literally not a point of pride when you let your vacation time build up. I'm sorry, but that's not a cute look. Like, I don't understand what kind of gold star you're trying to get. You need to take your time off. Not to mention that when you take your time off, you go experience really cool things that when you come back to work, you have more to talk about. You're more of an interesting person. And people, especially if you have people reporting to you, you set the stage of vacation and time off and self-care. If you're not taking any time off, do you expect anyone reporting to you to ever take time off? They're not going to. And that tends to lead down a road of bad management. And you don't want to be that person either. For me personally, I actually took all of August off this year, and it was bless. I hadn't taken on much time off the entire year, and I took the entire month off. Every day was so enjoyable. I got to actually just shut off, and it was so nice. And keep in mind, I'm in a 100% commission-based career, so did it hurt coming back? Yes, but I look back and I'm like, do I regret this any day? No. So I came back to my business fully refreshed. I had so much to talk about with new clients because they'd be like, oh, did you go anywhere this summer? I'm like, yes, I did. So it's conversation topics, you build memories. As much as I love to work, it's just we're not born to work. There's a time and place for it. But if you're focused on your job when you actually are working, there's tons of time to take time off as well. So if you're in a more traditional career, you pay into this time off. So take it. Take every day you can because it's worth it and enjoy it. Make sure to turn off emails. Make sure to prepare enough so that when you're on vacation that you really don't work. Working on your vacation is not a flex. You heard it here. I've done it before and I regret every single day I've ever done it. So please don't repeat my mistakes. Just communicate the expectations, communicate the ways you work. Another thing I forgot to mention is I try to take Sundays off every day. I usually work Monday to Saturday, and a lot of my clients want to go out and see properties on Sundays. And I always say to them as a heads up, I'm like, hey, heads up, I don't work Sundays. These are the times I spend with my friends and family because it's really my only day off during the week. So I like to take that day to myself. Majority of people are like, yeah, for sure. Let's just do Monday. Again, if it's a certain situation where we have to get out and it's time sensitive, of course I'm going to move around my schedule, but I try not to make it a habit. One thing to keep in mind is if you are setting boundaries with people in your professional career and you feel like they're constantly overstepping those boundaries, that's a bigger conversation. There's tons of resources out there on how to set boundaries. So just start educating yourself and getting some scripts around how to set these boundaries because you can only do a good job within your career if you are your best self, if you're well rested, if you feel like you have enough time to get everything done. There's nothing worse than feeling overwhelmed at work. Like I said, it leads to burnout. We begin to feel very unappreciated in our job, and it's just a bad cycle. So I'm going to leave the professional career boundaries aside because I want to move on to more friendships and relationships. I have some great points to talk about in this one. So the first thing I want to say when it comes to friendships and relationship boundaries is some of the tips that I also use in my career, I use in my friendships and relationships as well. Again, I don't have a separate phone for business and personal, so my phone is always on Do Not Disturb. Same kind of tip with I take time to respond to messages. I think about it for a while before I instantly respond. No one is ever expecting an instant response from you. So that tip and that thought process transfers over to any of my friendships and relationships as well. But the biggest one that I want to talk about, or two biggest topics that I want to talk about, especially in friendships, is the idea of FOMO and saying no to social plans, and also things around money and budget. And when your budgets don't align with your friends and you feel like they want you to spend a lot more than you want to. So first off, Let's talk about FOMO and saying no to events. I've been saying no to so much lately, and it's weird because I'm such an extroverted social person, but I've been having weird social anxiety lately. The idea of going to a party and socializing, normally I would love that. I'd have so much fun, but lately I just have no interest. The idea of going to a bar or a club and drinking a ton, I also have no interest in lately. So lately I've been saying no to a lot. Yes, I still have a little bit of FOMO, but what I try to do is I try to make my own plans and get excited about them. So whether that is a book that you really want to finish reading, why can't that be your Friday night plan? Or maybe you want it to binge watch the third season of You. Again, why can't that be your Saturday night? You don't have to do that on a Wednesday night. That can be your Saturday night plans. You can make some popcorn, you can have a quick glass of wine and just watch TV. That is perfectly fine. So where I'm going with this is it's hard to say no when you feel like you have a social obligation. Maybe your friends are all getting together and going out for dinner. Maybe everyone's going to this concert that you're going to kind of feel left out if you don't go, but maybe it's not a hell yeah for you, and you can say no. Another thing that happens to me a lot in my life is people ask me to do things like a week or two in advance. And the nature of my schedule changes on the daily by the hour. And I get really anxious lately giving a final answer of a yes or no answer. So what I usually do with my friends and also my boyfriend is I say, hey, like that sounds great. I don't have an answer for you right now. Like I can't solidify that in the calendar today, but let me get back to you later in the week, or maybe let's connect later in the week when it's getting closer to that date so I can have an answer for you. I have friends that want to plan like concerts 4 months in advance, and I just can't do it. The idea of that makes me really anxious. It kind of stresses me out. It overwhelms me. So lately, I like to be a last minute person, and that doesn't work for everyone, and that's okay. So maybe you've changed careers, or maybe you've had a life change of maybe you've had a kid recently, and the dynamic of all your relationships are going to change. And I think the best friendships and the best relationships are going to adapt to that, but you have to be okay with the ones that don't. Follow the cues of the types of plans and ideas that light you up. If a friend asks you to go for brunch on a Saturday afternoon, do you get excited about that? If so, maybe that's more of something that you want to do. If a friend asks you to go clubbing on a Thursday night and you're just like, the idea of being hungover on a Friday is not something that I want, then say no. And then reevaluate. Is it the plan? Is it the activity that I don't want to do? Or is it the friend that I don't want to hang out with? If it's the activity, that's great. That's an easy fix. You can say to your friend, okay, like I really want to see you, like we're overdue for a hangout, but the idea of going out drinking right now is like just not something that's vibing with me. Are you open to maybe just coming over for a glass of wine? Or do you want to go for breakfast or a coffee on the weekend instead? Or go for a walk or go run errands together? I don't know. But just reevaluate, is it the friends that you don't want to hang out with, or is it the activity? Because I hate to see anyone lose friendships or relationships over just changing the activity, because that's very easy to fix. It really comes down to communication with friends and relationships, and anyone really. Communicate why you're not giving them an answer immediately. Communicate why it's not a hell yes instantly. And then also make a plan for when you're going to give them an answer. And you also need to realize that it's important to, if you're going to be saying no right away and you want to continue this friendship or relationship, you need to provide alternatives. So 2 tips. First, if you don't have an answer for them right away, if someone's asking you to do something or wanting you to be part of something, you can easily say, I don't have an answer for you right now. Let me look at my calendar and get back to you around said date, X date. Or you can say, when using a script to give an alternative, you can say, hey, I really want to see you. I don't really feel like going drinking on Thursday night, but there's this great new restaurant I want to try. Do you want to join me? Simple, 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 simple. So I hope those 2 scripts can help you navigate some changing relationship dynamics and how to say no to people. So the other big boundary I've set in my relationships and really had to set over the years is the boundary around money and budgets and saying no to things due to budgets. So I have a lot of people in my life that love to celebrate things. They love to do big birthday parties. They love to go all out for events. And a few years ago, I was at a point in my life that I could not financially do that. And I'm thankful for it now because today I definitely can do it financially. But after years of saying no to things, now I don't even want to do it financially. So a couple examples that have come up for me in my life is when I was at a point that I couldn't afford it financially, I had friends that wanted to go to a concert in the States on just a weekend trip. So think that flight or the gas money to drive is going to cost $200. All in all, a weekend could be $800, $900. And maybe someone's listening be like, $800, $900, that's nothing. For me at that time, it was a lot of money, a lot of money. I was getting paid not much more over minimum wage. So that was a big portion of the monthly budget. So it hurt so much when I was in my early 20s saying no to these things because really I was saying no to a lot of memories that were made without me. And I regret it and I have FOMO to this day about it, but I'm also in a really good financial position now because I said no to all those things, because I didn't rack up credit cards, because I didn't rack up a bunch of debt. So you got to think longer term when you're saying no to those types of things. And again, you can say alternative plans. You can say, hey, I can't join this time, but would love to get together next week if you want to come over and I'll make you dinner. You can still build these healthy, beautiful connections and friendships without blowing your budget. And don't ever feel like you need to keep up with the Joneses just to keep friends. If you feel that way, you need to reevaluate your friendships. So one big boundary that I know that is probably coming up for a lot of people, especially my age, is everything around weddings and bridal showers and baby showers and on and on and on and on. There can be so many expensive events just for one person. I know a lot of my friends are getting engaged or also have friends that are getting engaged and they're standing in their wedding. And all of us know that that is a big, big, big expense. I'm almost nervous for the time that I have any of my friends ask me to stand for their wedding because I'm already dreading how big of an expense that is. And how sad is that for me to say right now, where I'm dreading a close person of mine's, one of their happiest days in their life because I'm already dreading the financial cost of it. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you're a bride right now, think about how much money that you're expecting of the close people around you. And really think about, are they in a position to be doing that? Is this even fair of me to be expecting any of this? And then really think, is there anything that I can offset? If I really want this as part of my wedding, is there something that I can pay for myself so people don't feel obligated? Because ultimately, all you want is one fun day for everyone. But if that comes at a huge expense for someone, they're not looking forward to your day, simply. It's expensive. And they're leaving that wedding knowing that it was your day, but yet they are having to deal with the financial burden of it. And what I'm saying is probably coming off very brash, but it's true. And I know a lot of people listening to this right now feel the same way. And I know some of my friends are in weddings and in multiple weddings, and the nature of them having a lot of friends and being a fantastic person gets them invited to all these weddings. But it can be pretty expensive. So if you're that person that's getting asked to be in a wedding that you know is going to be really expensive, you got to start thinking to yourself, is this something that I can financially afford? Is this something that I really want to be doing? And you need to have that conversation with your friend before it's too late of what their expectation of you in terms of time commitment and also money commitment. Can you afford that, both time and money? So ask yourself those things and maybe start having those conversations as early as you can, and also start learning how to set the boundaries around that. One option that I've heard of from people is if you're really close to this friend, but don't have either the time or money to commit to standing in a wedding, offer to be the MC. It's a lot less costly. It's a lot of fun. And there's not a lot of time commitment leading up to it. So, and that can be a great way that you could be a huge part of their wedding day, but stay within your own budget. Another thing that I know that a lot of people deal with is leading up to a wedding or leading up to a friend having a baby, there's a lot of other parties. There's the bridal shower, there's a baby shower, there's, I don't know, I can't even name them all right now. There's so many, but it gets expensive. So one thing that you could say to a friend, you can be honest with them. Just say, hey, financially, I can't do it all, but I want to be there for you. Is there an event that you want me there the most? Like, which is the one that's most important? Because I can't do them all. Your friend has to be a bit understanding. If you're willing to have an open and honest and vulnerable conversation around that, I think your friend loves you enough that they can be okay with that as long as you're open and upfront about it. So I hope that helps a little bit in terms of ideas on how to get around those types of societal expectations. And yeah, they can be pretty overwhelming sometimes. My next tip is specific for romantic relationships. I, along with many other people, can fall into codependent relationships pretty quick. And I try my hardest not to because it's not a good look for me, simply put. So one boundary that I always set in my relationships is setting the boundary of me time. So there's many times where probably my partner wants to hang out with me or even do a phone call or do just like a virtual movie night. And after a long day of work or a long week at work, there's some time that I just need for myself. I need to eat chocolate. I need to just drink a glass of wine and stare at a wall. I need to just watch my trashy reality TV and just veg out. Or I need to take a bath. There's many Friday nights I spend just having a bath just to decompress myself. But the boundary that I'm setting is I'm not feeling guilty for saying, hey, I love you. I'm not saying, no, I don't want to hang out with you, but I just need to hang out just me tonight. I'm not saying, hey, I'd rather hang out with my friends instead of you. I'm saying, I don't want to hang out with anyone. I need time for myself. And a lot of us feel so guilty for needing time to ourselves and just saying no to hanging out with others because we feel like they depend on us and they like spending time with us. But there's some times where you really just need to prioritize yourself. So yeah, I have no trouble saying no. I just want a night to myself. I'm putting my phone away. So if you don't hear from me, like, don't be alarmed. I'm just like laying here reading a book and I'm probably just going to go to bed. You need to remember that if you don't put yourself first, you're not going to have any time or energy to be there for anyone else. My last tip in how to set boundaries, and it's not really specific to relationships or career, it's more specific to social media. So I've done this myself. Have you ever had people that you're not even friends with them, maybe you went on a date with them and they just respond to every single one of your stories, but not in a way that's like, hey, how are you? Like, are you good? Like, you look well, like, glad to see you're succeeding. It's more like they're just like sending these weird messages that are really annoying and they're basically taking up space in your life that you're like, ugh, like, stop talking to me. I know I'm like going against my own advice because I don't often do this, but sometimes with these situations, being honest and upfront and communicating a boundary isn't really the best option. So a lot of times what I do in those scenarios is I block people. But I don't just block them. I block them from seeing my posts and my stories, especially my stories. It's such a weird thing and they don't know that you're doing this, but it's such a good idea. It almost just sets the boundary without having have a serious conversation about it. So the hot little tip, but I highly recommend. And also the idea of not responding or just blocking people is always a good move as well. These are all very real life examples that I struggle with all the time, that I'm not an expert, but I definitely think I'm pretty good at it, but I'm working on it every single day. At the end of the day, you need to remember that you can't pour from an empty cup. If there's nothing left to you, then you're not going to be good for anyone. You know what I mean? You need to put yourself first. You need to remember that when you feel like your boundaries are being crossed, check in with yourself. Why do you feel like that boundary is being crossed? What are the times that you feel overwhelmed? And really just sit with yourself and think and analyze and express those thoughts and express those emotions and give yourself time to feel those emotions. If there's anything that I can give you in terms of advice right now is take more time for yourself. Turn your phone off. Set time in your calendar just for me time. Just schedule that self-care. It's so buzzy again, self-care, but it's true. You need to schedule time for just yourself. Stop feeling guilty about not being everything and everywhere for everyone. You need to put yourself first. Self-care isn't selfish, and you really need to let that sink in. Let me reiterate a lot of my top points from today that I really want to hammer home. First of all, put your phone on Do Not Disturb. Stop answering the text messages. Treat them like emails. Take time to respond. Secondly, take vacation. Please, for the love of God, take vacation. And if you need ideas of where to go and what to do, text me. I will give you tons of ideas. I'm always looking for reasons to take time off. Please take your vacation. No one's giving you a gold star for not taking vacation. Take your vacation. Mean this with love. Further into relationships and friendships, stop having FOMO. Be okay with saying no. Put your financial well-being first and ahead of your social obligations. And if all fails, just block the people. I'm just kidding. But it is a good tip that I like to end off with is if someone's not respecting the boundary, block them. Stop engaging. Stop responding. It's just not worth your time and energy. So guys, thank you so much for listening to my rants. Not rants. I hope there's some great tips in there. I always like to just let you guys know what's happening in my life. I'm struggling with things just as much as anyone else is, and this is a nice place to allow me to express that to you guys and let you be able to hear if there's anything that's resonating with you. One thing I want to say is I'm going to do a lot more solo episodes, or I'm trying to. I want to try to do them probably once a month or once every 6 weeks because I like them. I really enjoy them. But what I need from you is, what do you want to hear about? What do you guys want me to talk about? Give me some ideas. What are you struggling with? What kind of topics do you want to hear about? What do you want to know about me? And what do you think I can give you advice on? Just ask because I'm always looking for ideas. Please make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And tune in for next week's episode. There's lots of great episodes coming your way in the future. All right, have a great day, and thank you for being here.